Alright, I want to start today with a confession.
A real one.
Not the cute kind you tell to make yourself sound relatable. The kind that actually stings a little. For almost 2 years, I thought I was doing listening practice. Every single day, I put on an English podcast while I made coffee. While I drove. While I did the dishes. Hours and hours of English, just flowing past me week after week. And you know what happened after 2 years of that? Almost nothing. I could still barely follow a fast conversation between two native speakers. I still froze in real conversations, catching maybe 60% of what people said and just nodding at the rest, hoping it was a smile-appropriate moment and not a "why are you nodding at that" moment. And for a long time, I genuinely thought something was wrong with me. Like my ears just weren't built for this. Like other people had some kind of gift I didn't have. But here's what I eventually figured out, and it's the entire reason I wanted to record this episode today. The problem was never my ears. The problem was that I was doing something that looked exactly like listening practice, but wasn't actually listening practice at all. I was doing what I now call background listening. English playing in the room, sure. But my brain wasn't working. It wasn't reaching. It wasn't struggling with anything. It was just sitting there, letting sound wash over it, the same way you'd let music play in a coffee shop without actually hearing the lyrics. And here's the uncomfortable truth I had to accept: comfortable listening doesn't build listening skill. If it feels easy the entire time, you're probably not improving nearly as much as you think you are. That one realization changed everything about how I approach this. And that is exactly what today's episode is about. Hey English learners, welcome back to Learn English Naturally. Your cozy little place to learn real English through conversations that actually change how you think. I'm Ethan, flying solo today, and I am genuinely excited about this one, because listening is probably the single most misunderstood skill in the entire process of learning English. Today, we're going deep. Not a quick tip, not a surface-level watch more Netflix suggestion. We're talking about what listening practice actually is, why most of what people call listening practice barely works, and I'm going to give you a real, structured method you can start using today, one that actually trains your brain instead of just keeping it company. By the end of this episode, you'll understand exactly why some people listen to English for years without much progress, while others make real, noticeable gains in a matter of weeks. And no, it's not about talent. It's about method. We'll also break down some powerful vocabulary and phrases along the way, so you're learning language while you learn about learning language. A little meta, I know. Stick with me. But before we get into any of that, I want you to do something for me right now, before you keep listening. Think about the last time you truly struggled to understand spoken English. Maybe a movie without subtitles. Maybe a phone call. Maybe a coworker talking just a little too fast. Hold that moment in your mind. Because by the end of this episode, I want you to understand exactly why that moment happened, and exactly what to do differently next time. Alright. Let's get into it. So let's start with the myth. The one I fell for, and honestly, the one almost every learner falls for at some point. The myth is this: if I listen to enough English, my listening will naturally improve. And I understand why this feels true. It has a kind of logic to it. Practice makes progress, right? The more input, the more improvement. It sounds almost too obvious to question. But here's the problem with that logic. It treats listening like it's a single skill, one simple thing your brain either does or doesn't do. But listening, real listening, is actually made up of several separate skills working together. And exposure alone only trains one or two of them, while completely ignoring the rest. Let me break that apart for a second, because I think this is the part most people never hear explained clearly. The first skill is sound recognition. This is your ability to actually distinguish individual sounds, hearing the difference between similar sounds, catching words that blend together in fast natural speech, noticing where one word ends and another begins. This is the skill that struggles most with phrases like "what are you doing" turning into something that sounds, in fast casual speech, almost like one long word. The second skill is vocabulary matching. This is your brain's ability to take a sound you just heard and match it instantly to a word you already know the meaning of. And this is trickier than it sounds, because you might know a word perfectly well when you read it, but completely fail to recognize that exact same word when it's spoken quickly, in a sentence, surrounded by other words. The third skill is real-time comprehension. This is putting meaning together as it happens, in the moment, without pausing to translate, without rewinding in your head, keeping up with the actual speed of a live conversation.
And the fourth skill,
the one almost nobody talks about, is tolerance for not understanding everything. This is your ability to keep listening, keep following along, even when you miss a word or a phrase, instead of mentally panicking and losing the entire next 10 seconds because you got stuck on one thing you didn't catch. 4 separate skills. And background listening, the kind where English just plays in the room while your attention is somewhere else, mostly only touches the first one, a little bit of exposure to sound. It barely touches the other 3 at all. Which is exactly why you can listen to hundreds of hours of English and still struggle in real conversations. You've been training 1/4 of the skill, and assuming the other 3/4 would just
show up on their own. They don't.
They have to be trained directly, deliberately. And that's what we're going to fix today. So let's talk about what actually works. And I want to give you something practical here, not just theory. A real method, one I use myself, one I've watched work for learner after learner. I call it the 3-pass method, and it's built around a simple idea. You don't listen to something once and move on. You listen to the same short piece of audio multiple times, but with a different job each time. Here's how it works.
First, choose a short piece of audio.
This matters more than people expect. Not a full hour-long podcast episode. Something short, 30 seconds to 2 minutes. A clip from a show, a short news segment, a snippet of a podcast, a scene from a movie. Short enough that repeating it doesn't feel exhausting.
Then pass 1.
Listen once, all the way through without pausing, without looking anything up, without checking a transcript. Your only job on this first pass is to get the general idea.
What's the topic?
What's the overall feeling? Is it serious? Is it funny? Is it a disagreement? Is it a story? You are not trying to catch every word. You're just trying to catch the shape of it. And here's something important. You will not understand everything on this first pass, and that's completely fine. That's actually the entire point. This pass is about training that 4th skill I mentioned, tolerance for uncertainty. Getting comfortable with partial understanding instead of panicking about it.
Pass 2.
Listen again, but this time pause it. Actually pause the audio every 10 to 15 seconds and ask yourself a very specific question. What did I just hear? Not what do I think it means in a general sense, but literally, what words were said. Try to repeat it back, out loud if you can, even if you're not confident you got it exactly right. This pass is where the real work happens. This is where you're training that second skill, matching sound to meaning, and you're doing it actively instead of passively. You're not letting sound wash over you anymore. You're wrestling with it. You'll notice something interesting during this pass. There will be specific words or phrases that trip you up every single time, no matter how many times you replay that one section. Pay very close attention to those moments. They're not random. They're telling you something specific about a gap in your listening. Maybe it's a sound pattern you don't recognize yet. Maybe it's a word you know in writing, but not in speech. Maybe it's just speed. Whatever it is, that's valuable information. Write it down if you can. Pass 3. Now, and only now, check a transcript if you have one, or look up anything you genuinely couldn't figure out. Find out what you missed, and more importantly, find out why you missed it. Was it a word you didn't know at all? Or was it a word you did know, but couldn't recognize spoken quickly? Those are two completely different problems with two completely different solutions. If it's a word you didn't know, that's simple, that's just vocabulary. Add it to your list, learn it, move on. But if it's a word you did know, and you still couldn't catch it when spoken, that's actually the more important discovery. That means the issue wasn't vocabulary at all. It was your ear not yet trained to recognize that word in its spoken, natural, fast form. And the fix for that isn't learning new words. The fix is repetition, listening to that exact phrase again, several times, until your brain builds a stronger connection between the sound and the meaning you already have stored. Then finally, listen one more time, all the way through without pausing. And notice how different it feels compared to that very first pass. Words that were a blur the first time now stand out clearly. Phrases that disappeared into the noise now land exactly where they should. That shift, that feeling of a fog slightly lifting on the same piece of audio, is the actual sensation of listening skill improving in real time. And it happens in minutes, not months, when you practice this way. That's the part that surprises people most. Now I want to address something, because I know exactly what some of you are thinking right now. This sounds like a lot more effort than just putting on a podcast during your commute.
And you're right.
It is more effort. There's no way around that. But here's the trade-off worth understanding clearly. 10 focused minutes using this method will move your actual listening skill forward more than 2 hours of background listening ever will.
Not a small difference.
A genuinely large one. This doesn't mean background listening is worthless, by the way. I still do it myself. It's great for building familiarity with the general rhythm and melody of English, for keeping your ear warmed up, for enjoyment, honestly, which matters too. But it needs to be understood for what it actually is, a supplement, not the main training. The 3-pass method is the main training. Background listening is the extra vitamin on top of an actual meal. Let's talk about a second concept now, one that I think is just as important as the method itself: the idea of listening at the edge of your ability, rather than in your comfort zone. Here's what I mean by that. A lot of learners choose listening material that's either far too easy, where they understand everything effortlessly and nothing actually challenges them, or far too difficult, where they understand almost nothing and just feel discouraged and give up after 2 minutes. Neither of those actually builds skill efficiently. What builds skill is finding material where you understand somewhere around 70 to 80% on that first pass. Enough to follow the general thread, but enough gaps remaining that there's real work to do in passes 2 and 3. That 70 to 80% zone is sometimes called the edge of your ability, or your zone of productive struggle. It's uncomfortable, a little, in a useful way. Not so hard it breaks you. Not so easy it teaches you nothing. Right at that edge, right where growth actually happens. And this means, practically, that the right listening material is different for every single person, and it changes over time as you improve. What felt impossibly fast a few months ago might now feel almost too easy, and that's actually a fantastic sign. It means it's time to find something a little more challenging, because you've outgrown your old edge and built yourself a new one. Now, let's talk about a mistake I made for a very long time, one I suspect a lot of you are making too, and it has to do with subtitles. I used to watch everything with English subtitles on, all the time, no exceptions. And subtitles absolutely have their place, don't get me wrong. But here's the trap: subtitles let your eyes do the work your ears are supposed to be doing. You're technically hearing English, but you're actually reading English, and your brain, given a choice between reading and listening, will almost always take the easier path, which is reading. So if your entire goal in a viewing session is subtitles, you might be improving your reading speed more than your actual listening comprehension. Which is a fine skill to build, genuinely, but it's a different skill, and it's important not to confuse the two. My suggestion, and this took me a long time to actually commit to: watch or listen once with no subtitles at all, using the 3-pass method we just talked about. Only after that, if you want, watch it again with subtitles, to confirm what you got right and catch anything you missed. That order matters enormously. Ears first, eyes second. Not the other way around. I also want to talk about something people rarely mention, which is the emotional side of listening practice, because I think it matters just as much as the technical side. There's a very specific kind of frustration that comes with listening practice, a feeling of I should understand this and I don't, and that frustration causes a lot of people to just quietly give up on listening practice altogether, without ever really admitting that's what they're doing. Here's what helped me the most with that frustration: reframing what a miss actually means. Every single time you don't understand something, that's not proof that you're bad at English.
It's data.
It's your brain quietly pointing directly at exactly what needs attention next. A miss isn't a failure.
A miss is a map.
It's telling you precisely where to focus your energy, instead of leaving you to guess. Once I started thinking about it that way, listening practice stopped feeling like a test I kept failing, and started feeling more like a conversation with my own progress. Each gap wasn't evidence I couldn't do this. It was simply the next thing to work on. Alright, let's get into the vocabulary now, because I want to give you some specific language today related to everything we've been talking about. 5 words and phrases, pulled directly from this episode, that will help you talk about listening practice, and honestly about learning in general more precisely.
First, comprehension.
Comprehension means the ability to understand something, especially spoken or written language. It's not just hearing words, it's actually grasping the meaning behind them. You could say, her listening comprehension improved dramatically once she started using focused practice instead of just background noise. Let's repeat it slowly.
Comprehension. Comprehension.
Second, zone of productive struggle. This phrase describes the specific difficulty level where a task is challenging enough to promote real growth, but not so difficult that it becomes discouraging or impossible. You could say, choosing content in your zone of productive struggle is far more effective than choosing content that feels either effortless or overwhelming.
Let's repeat it.
Zone of productive struggle. Third, passive versus active. This describes 2 very different ways of engaging with input. Passive means simply receiving something without much effort or attention, like background listening. Active means engaging deliberately, working with the material, pausing, questioning, repeating. You could say, the difference between passive listening and active listening is the difference between hearing a language and actually learning it.
Let's repeat it.
Passive versus active.
Fourth, to catch.
In the context of listening, to catch means to successfully hear and understand a specific word or phrase, especially one that was spoken quickly. You could say, I couldn't quite catch what she said at the end of that sentence, so I had to ask her to repeat it.
Let's repeat it. To catch.
And fifth, a gap in your listening. This phrase refers to a specific, identifiable area of weakness in your ability to understand spoken English, usually revealed by exactly the kind of repeated, focused listening we've discussed today. You could say, after reviewing the transcript, she realized her gap in listening wasn't vocabulary at all. It was simply recognizing words when they were spoken quickly.
Let's repeat it.
A gap in your listening. 5 useful pieces of language, straight from everything we've covered today. Try using 1 or 2 of them this week, in a sentence of your own, out loud if you can. That's exactly the kind of active practice we've been talking about this entire episode, so there's no better time to start than right now. Now, before we wrap up, I want to give you something concrete to actually do, because listening to an episode about listening practice and then closing the app and moving on with your day would be a little bit ironic, and honestly, a bit of a waste of everything we just covered. Here's your challenge. Today or tomorrow at the very latest, find one short piece of English audio, 30 seconds to 2 minutes long. It could be a short clip from a show, a snippet from a podcast, anything at all. And run it through the 3-pass method we talked about. Listen once for the general shape. Listen again, pausing, actively working through it. Then check what you missed, and figure out exactly why you missed it. I promise you, even just once, that exercise will feel different from anything you've done before in the name of listening practice. And if you do it consistently, even just a few times a week, you will notice a real, tangible shift in how spoken English feels to you, probably faster than you expect. I genuinely love to know how it goes. Come tell me in the comments what piece of audio you chose, and what you discovered about your own specific gaps. I read every single comment, and there is something incredibly valuable about seeing exactly what trips other learners up too, because I promise you, you are never the only one struggling with that particular thing. And if this episode gave you something useful today, share it with someone who's been listening to English for years without feeling like it's actually working. There's a good chance they're stuck in exactly the same trap I was stuck in for 2 long years, and sometimes all it takes is hearing it explained a little differently for something to finally click. So here's what I want you to carry with you today, as we close things out. Improving your listening was never really about how many hours you spend with English playing somewhere in the background of your life. It was never about the total number of shows you've watched, or the total number of episodes you've let quietly pass by while your attention drifted somewhere else. Progress was never hiding in the quantity of sound around you. It was hiding in the quality of attention you brought to it. In the willingness to sit with 30 uncomfortable seconds of audio, again and again, until something that was once a blur became something clear. In treating every single moment of confusion, not as proof that you're falling behind, but as a precise, useful map, pointing directly toward exactly what to work on next. You don't need more hours in your day. You don't need a perfect, distraction-free environment, or expensive courses, or some special gift for languages that other people supposedly have and you don't. You need 30 seconds of audio, and the willingness to actually listen to it closely more than once. That's it. That's the entire shift.
Not more input. Better attention.
So today, find your 30 seconds.
Press play. Listen closely.
And notice, maybe for the first time in a while, what it actually feels like to really hear English, instead of simply letting it pass by. This has been Learn English Naturally. I'm Ethan. Thank you so much for spending this time with me today, and I will see you in the next episode. Keep learning, keep listening, and I mean that in the very specific way we talked about today.
Take care, and talk soon.